situation. Former FBI Special Agent Todd Hulsey joins us now to discuss yesterday's tragic shooting and the police response to it. Todd, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So there has been a lot of criticism on behalf of the Uvalde Police Department around how long it took police to react in that situation. So what do you make of the response that we saw yesterday when it came to the way that Tulsa police responded to the shooting at the medical center?
Let's set the table on that for a moment. It was not the Uvalde Police Department that was the lead agency in the shooting. It was the Uvalde Independent School District Police Department, not the city police department. And that makes it a very different matter. We're talking about a school district police department of 6 officers, including the chief. We're not talking about a big police department with a lot of resources. And Tulsa, a city of about 500,000 people, now it's not Los Angeles or New York, but it's not a small town. It's got a big city police department, and it has the resources, it has the training that goes along with it to deal with the crime threats that exist in an urban area or a metro area. And I would think, I looked at the Tulsa police chief's background today, and he's highly trained, an FBI National Academy graduate, an FBI National Executive Institute graduate, and a graduate of some other executive training programs for law enforcement executives. And we don't have that with the school district police chief at all. And I think you see a difference in training, and that really makes the difference, because the on-scene commander, the school district police chief, in my mind, was simply out of his depth, and it's because he was never properly trained to be an on-scene commander in a critical incident.
All right, so it sounds as though you're saying there was a lack of experience in this matter, but it wasn't just the school police that were there. Eventually, it was also the local police. Eventually, it was also the Border Patrol. There were several agencies that ended up responding here. So what happened? Why did it take so long to approach the shooter? Was there so much bureaucracy taking place that nobody knew how to act, how to respond?
No, that's not it at all. The United States operates under something called the Incident Command System, and the Incident Commander is the School District Police Department. You have responding agencies. The City Police Department responded, the County Sheriff's Department responded, the Highway Patrol responded, the Border Patrol responded, other agencies from as far away as San Antonio, 80 miles away, responded. But the Incident Commander, the on-scene commander, was the School District Police Chief. He treated the scene as if it were a barricaded suspect situation and not an active shooter situation. And as I've said in other media, that's the bazillion-dollar question, why he remained wedded with feet planted firmly in concrete that it was a barricaded suspect situation and not an active shooter situation. And he, as the incident commander, was holding people back until the BORTAC team, the Border Patrol Tactical Team, decided, well, to hell with him, we're going to make entry, and they did so, killing the shooter. I really think we have to understand what was happening. Uvalde is a town of about 15,000 people, and the Uvalde County population is not much bigger than that. We're talking about a rural piece of territory versus a metro area such as Tulsa. That does make a difference, because small departments train their officers only up to the minimum standard required by state law in whichever state we're talking about. Bigger departments invest more time and training in their officers, and that includes command staff. And that's very important here. And I think that Chief Arredondo and the Uvalde School District Police, I think he was simply out of his depth, and he stayed wedded to the idea it was a barricaded suspect situation. There's something called the cognitive emotive syndrome, in which somebody believes something is one thing, and more information comes in, even if it's contrary, it fuels that belief that it's one thing. How do you snap out of that? Well, it's training. Everybody performs up to the level of training and not up to the occasion. We fall to the level of our training. And I think we see a stark difference between the school district police department, even the Uvalde City Police Department, and the County Sheriff's Department, and the Tulsa Police Department and the surrounding agencies. I really think it goes back to training. You can have 25 years experience in law enforcement,
Todd,
but if your entire training...
It's my understanding in this case, though, that that these school district officers just went through training. And not only that, they also had a school resource officer on campus, and they have a big budget to tackle things like this. Now, you just mentioned a couple different agencies that responded to this shooting. So at the end of the day, what is the protocol? What is the active shooter training that all of these agencies are going through, and is it enough?
That's a great question. It's a perfect question, because I've seen that in the media that 2 months ago, independent school district police went through active shooter training. What was the chief's role in that? Was he hands on hip supervisor watching the other 5 officers do it? Was he the tactical team leader, or was he the incident commander? I don't know, but just because somebody goes through training doesn't answer the questions of whether the training was thorough, complete, and up to the task. And again, under the incident command system, he was calling, and I don't want to use that metaphor, he was the person in charge. And so his people went through active shooter training. Well, what kind of training? What did he do during the training? Was it the kind of training that he needed to have? And again, under the incident command system, he was the incident commander. There's a second part of your question that I've now forgotten, if you want to ask it again.
I do want to ask you, because it sounds as though obviously you're really, really upset about this. And it sounds as though you're saying that maybe this training at the end of the day needs to be federally mandated. So there is protocol that is there, that is in place, that every single person who is law enforcement is following.
Yes, the question about current American police doctrine, and this all changed at Columbine in 1999, is that if there's an active shooter, whether it's a school, a shopping mall, a place of business, it doesn't matter. If there's an active shooter, even if only one officer responds and gets there first, the officer is supposed to go to the sound of gunfire, locate the shooter, and kill the shooter. Again, why that doctrine wasn't followed here goes back to why the on-scene commander or the incident commander didn't recognize it, apparently, as an active shooter situation. I can't answer that. That's why the post-mortem on this that the Department of Justice is going to do, and that the Texas Department of Public Safety is doing, should tell us a lot about why that circumstance existed. From other news reporting, and apparently this police chief was being told by officers, he's still shooting. We've got to go in. We've got to go in, and he held them back. You know, we want police officers. We got a schizophrenic country when it comes to law enforcement. Defund the police, demilitarize the police. Oh, if something like this happens, well, where was the police? All of these things are synergistic in our society. And so we don't want, because we talk about rogue cops, police, firefighters are all trained to respond to the person wearing the rank insignia on their collar if they're the incident commander. And that's what they were doing until it became apparent, at least to the BORTAC team, that something bad is continuing to happen. It's not a barricade suspect situation. And they went ahead, countermanded his orders, and went ahead on their own, and good on them for doing that.
Well, I hear the
police doctrine is go find a shooter and kill him.
Yes, I've spoken with other FBI experts who say the same thing, that law enforcement is trained to move quickly, to move towards that target. So at the end of the day, I have to ask you this, because especially in the case of Uvalde, it seemed as though people just started taking matters into their own hands. We heard about off-duty officers who grabbed their guns and they ran into the school looking for their own children. We heard about parents who were running towards the school trying to protect their children that were in that classroom. Those parents were being tased. Those parents were being arrested in this case. What do you make of that? What do you make of the way that some of the parents were being treated at the end of the day as they were trying to protect their own children, knowing that their children were in that classroom with an active shooter?
Well, look, I'm a parent, too. My wife is a Texas school teacher, and I won't say that I wouldn't be trying to do the same thing. But what you can't do when you're controlling the scene, and this is an artifact of the scene going on so long with the person inside the shooter shooting and law enforcement standing outside, and the incident commander not ordering people to go in immediately, that people are coming. I got to get my kid out of there. I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing myself. But what you can't have is people pouring into the school and then your casualty count goes up. Because if the person's in there and he's armed and he's actively shooting and more people go in, your casualty count could go up. And then untrained people, frankly, might get in the way of an off-duty officer trying to get his or her kid out, and certainly any officers who are then ordered in. So, I mean, it's one of these things. If that scene didn't go on for, what, an hour and 20 minutes, it had been taken care of more quickly, we wouldn't have seen any of that stuff about parents being tased and handcuffed. I can't blame the parents, but I also know that you can't let people into the situation and have your casualty count go even higher. And so, again, we go back to, why did the on-scene commander treat it as a barricaded suspect situation for so long when it was apparently obvious to everyone else it was an active shooter situation? I hope we find out the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, Todd. And, the investigation continues, so we appreciate you joining us today to take a deeper look at that. Former FBI Special Agent Todd Hulsey, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.